دوستان عزیز درود بر شما و میریم سراغ The Logic of Scientific Method. منطق لاجیک یعنی منطق روش علمی. میگه The logic of the scientific method was set out by فلانی در سال فلان and was named the method of difference. میگه منطق این روش علمی به وسیله آقای فلانی در سال فلانی پایه‌گذاری شد و نامیده شد روش difference یعنی متفاوت بودن. A simple example یه مثال سادهش what he meant by this که منظور اون چی بوده همین آقای استوارت میل is to take two glasses of water دو تا گلاس واتر رو بگیریم which are in every respect که از هر لحاظ چی هستن identical هستن یعنی یکسان هستن چون در مورد تفاوت میخواد صحبت کنیم. Introduce a few drops of ink into one of these glasses. میگه introduce یعنی یه چیزی رو وارد یه چیز دیگه کردن، یه ایجنت رو وارد کردن که دکتر ادم از دانشگاه سیدنی برامون توضیح میده تو قسمت بعدی. میگه یه چند تا قطره جوهر رو داخل یکی از این گلاس ها میریزین. The water changes color. میگه آب رنگش رو تغییر میده according to Mill's method of difference. میگه بر اساس روش تفاوت آقای میل it is safe to assume that بهتره که یعنی سیفتره که فرض کنیم که تغییر توی رنگ آب به خاطر یه فاکتور جدیده. Introduction of a new factor. اینو زیاد میشنویم. Introduction of a new factor. اینجا باید از introduction استفاده کنیم. مثلا emergence نمیشه. Emergence of a new factor از لحاظ گرامری درسته اما emergence یعنی یه پدیده رو انجام دادیم بعدا خودش یه چیزی رو ظهور میده اما اینجا ما خودمون قراره یه چیزی داخل یه چیزی وارد کنیم. The variable the independent variable متغیر غیر وابسته. ما تو ریاضیات dependent variable داریم علوم اصلا کلا یه independent variable داریم یه متغیر غیر وابسته. پس اینم میتونیم راحت بگیم صحبت‌های دکتر ادم گوش کنیم که در مورد غلطایی که یکی از بچه‌ها انجام داده.
I mean, emergence does work grammatically. But in this case, introduction makes more sense in the context because introduction, someone does that. Emergence comes out of the process by itself. So they're talking about, in the previous sentences, they talk about introducing a few drops of ink into the glasses. That's something someone does deliberately. It's not them sitting back and watching something emerge. They're introducing or bringing that factor to the experiment. Yeah, and independent variable, it doesn't have the same meaning because emergence implies that it's been created by a process. Introduction implies that there's an agent. So someone's come along and done it, whereas emergence implies that it kind of comes out of a process that exists. So you could talk about the emergence of new factors, but you'd be talking about something a bit different to what's happening here. Like if you're observing, like to go back to the example of the ecology of a national park, you might notice the emergence of a new factor as feral cats come from people's houses and start eating the deer. That would be an emergence of a factor, whereas if you chose to introduce that factor, you'd have to say introduction.
Great. And also this one?
I think this is much more about the conventions of scientific discussion. Calling something an independent variable is the label that you put on it rather than a separate variable, even if they're literally the same. So I think a separate variable, the thing about separation is it doesn't imply independence. Independent is that it's not linked in other ways and it's separate. So independence does add something extra to the meaning here, as opposed to just being separate. You could say that there are 3 or 4 separate variables, but that they're all dependent on each other in certain ways. That would make sense. So I think saying independent variable is specifying a little bit more than separate, and that's probably why that's in usage.
Yeah, great.